right, it's time for the feature presentation. We're a little bit delayed. The time got away from us. The conversation is just that good. Keep in mind, anyone who's spoken today, you'll have some chances, hopefully, to speak to them toward the end of the presentation here. And we also tend to go out to Frida Petito's around 11 or so, or around 10:15 or so. You can talk to people there as well. Okay. We have a fantastic guest tonight, a big part of the community for a long time. Raeann Hardin has been just doing fantastic stuff, giving talks, right? Going to university talks, bringing game dev to our community in many ways. And we're so super excited to have her here. Thank you so much for sharing your wisdom with us tonight. Thank you.
So before I get into this presentation, there are a few things that have happened since I agreed to give this presentation in December. No, nothing's changed at all. So the first thing I want to do is kind of ask a general raise of hands. Who all here is planning to start applying to jobs in the industry in the next year? Okay. Okay. Well, this is great because this presentation is specifically for you. It should be helpful though still for folks who are interested just in how other studios are doing things, what people are thinking when they're hiring people. I will say that obviously our industry at the moment has a lot more competition for jobs than it might have a month ago. So keep in mind through everything I go through that you could have the perfect resume, you could have the perfect portfolio, you could give the best interview and still not be the right fit for a job. Everything that I'm going to talk about is kind of subjective. Obviously, I work for a game studio. A lot of this is based off of my experience, but it's also based off of what I know of my colleagues in the industry. I don't completely operate in a bubble of Stardock. So a lot of the knowledge that I'm going to share is kind of what has been shared with me as well. So hopping right into it. Let's talk about who I am for a second. So I am the HR operations manager at Stardock. I am a SHRM, which is the Society for Human Resource Management certified professional. I'm Michigan born and raised, so I'm from here. I got into the games here, obviously, games industry here, obviously. When I started my LinkedIn profile, this is just kind of a note for later, I had 10 connections. Now I've got 1,500. The way I met the way I met people in the industry was largely through the internet, and so I'm hoping to kind of impart some of that for you as well. I have 4 years of recruiting experience at Stardock at all experience levels and all disciplines. So I've hired associate devs, I've hired producers, artists, designers, kind of the whole gambit. And I'm also Kate's boss. So that's only to say that I've taught other people how to do this. Yeah, she's great. So, but I can't give a presentation without talking a little bit about who Stardock is. So Stardock, obviously Austin said a little bit, and I'm sure some of you have heard him talk about us before. But we are a privately owned and operated game studio located in Plymouth. So that's about 20 minutes from here. We've actually been in business for 30 years. We're one of the oldest independent PC game studios around. We do titles such as Galactic Civilization, so we're working on Galactic Civilizations 4 and DLC for that project now. We've done Star Control Origins, that little slug creature in the corner. His name is Windu, and he's my favorite, so I have to include him. And we've currently got about 40 or so full-time employees and a dozen or two contractors that we work with that kind of span all of the disciplines that I said I've hired for. So in this talk, I want to give you guys an idea before we hop into it, kind of what we're going to be talking about. So I'm going to be talking about what I like to call choosing your character. Essentially, I'm going to be talking about some of the disciplines in games. I'm going to be talking about some of the key skills that you really need to be able to exhibit on your resume and portfolio if you're looking for these jobs, not just at Stardock. I'm going to be talking about preparing your resume for battle, so I'm going to go through actually some do's and don'ts. I'm actually going to be showing you some of the resumes of some of the people I have hired at Stardock and some of the things they did well and some of the things they did not so well, but don't worry, I have their permission for that. I'm going to be talking a little bit about LinkedIn and kind of how to build a network there. And then I'll be talking about networking, which is kind of with the LinkedIn, but like talking more so about like how to utilize your network. So let's start with talking about who you will be in the games industry. Some of the things to keep in mind with determining who you want to be in the games industry is understanding the functions of a studio, understanding what it is that they do, but not trying to do all of them. Again, like this is more so from a like AAA, or as we call ourselves affectionately, like AA studio perspective. Obviously in indie dev, it's a little different, but you're not like, these things are kind of applicable all the way. But really you need to identify what your passion is and go from there. Knowing and honing the fundamental skills for your discipline. So the way that I came up with the next slide is I went to 25 different studios' websites. I pulled up job descriptions for different disciplines, and I kind of combined them all into a list, and we'll talk about that. But if you're curious, like, what should I really be focusing on? What should I really be, like, including on my resume and portfolio? Like, look at the job descriptions for the type of jobs you want to work for, and that's a pretty good start. And then the last thing is actually a resource by Rick Davidson. It's called The Big List of Video Game Development Team Roles. He does a great job of talking about what the different jobs in a game studio are, what they do, how they interact with each other. If you're kind of curious what kind of role might be a good fit for you, that's a pretty good resource to check out. So let's talk about some of the skills that are going to be really applicable for these different disciplines. I chose these 4 because that's largely what I'm hiring for at Stardock, but obviously you can do the same sort of thing I did to get these. So engineering. Someone might look at this and say, Raeann, there's no C# or Unity on that list. The reason is because when I went to these 25 different studios pages and I looked at their like entry-level gameplay engineer job postings, the first thing they list on every single one of them is C++. One of them had, and C# is also like, C# knowledge is also preferred after they said C++. 3D math, a lot of these studios are using proprietary engines. They're doing 3D games. They want you to know linear algebra or do at least some sort of vector math. Analytical problem solving skills, we'll talk about that, and debugging. So like when something's wrong, being able to figure it out. Art, the fundamentals of art, I think you might be surprised how much this like can be missed or like understood. Being able to have like the solid fundamental art skills like shown in your portfolio is really important. At any point in a pipeline, if you're getting an asset that looks a little wonky, if you're an artist, you should feel the responsibility to notice it. Like they are hiring you to be an artist, not just like a modeler. Like even if that's your job title, like it's because you're an artist. So being able to have the fundamentals of art, sculpting, obviously, texturing, modeling, those all go into that as well. Design and production. You're going to see they have kind of similar skills listed here. They are very different roles, but we'll kind of talk about that as well as we go into it. But generally, you need to be very organized. You need to be able to communicate. Analytical problem-solving skills. We see that again. Design, obviously, scripting. Being able to like go into Lua and like make the systems do things that the engineers signed up or set up for you. And then production, obviously interpersonal skills, you're going to be solving a lot of people's problems and unblocking a lot of people's issues or getting clarification. And so being able to work with lots of different types of people and facilitate communication for lots of different people is very important as well. So I kind of speed ran through that, but like the base of it is like to know what you're going to be putting in your resume and portfolio. So some caveats on that. Every single recruiter has a different idea of what a perfect resume looks like. I will give you my thoughts, and I will let you know where I've heard differing opinions on it, but I'm pretty lax in what I look for. Not every applicant tracking system is created equal. You might hear this a lot if you're on LinkedIn and you're following some of like the big recruiters that are like, like your ATS is gonna parse out specific keywords, and if you don't have those keywords, you're never gonna get seen by a real person. And like in some cases, that is true, but in other cases, it is not. Like at Stardock, if you submit your resume and job application, you're guaranteed that a person will see it. It will be either me or Kate will be looking at your resume every single time. So you don't really know what it is that, like who's seeing your resume or not. It is best practice though to like prepare for the worst. But do keep in mind that like a person could be actually looking at that. If you're curious how to find out what applicant tracking system a company is using and like optimizing your resume for that applicant tracking system, if you go to the careers page and you click on apply, oftentimes in like the URL, it'll say like, for us, it says stardock.bamboohr.com. You can look up Bamboo HR. You can see how their ATS works. JobVite is a big one. Greenhouse is a big one. Like you can see how like the ATS is going to parse your resume. And then not every discipline expects the same sort of resume and portfolio. And I'll talk about that. So I'm going to hit some FAQs that I get a lot. A lot of people ask me if they need a portfolio. I would say in general, again, especially if you're like entry level, first trying to get into the industry, if your discipline creates a deliverable, you need a portfolio to go with it. If you are a designer and you're submitting a resume without a portfolio, I'm not really looking at it as much as I am with the ones with portfolios. Same thing goes for engineers, it goes for artists. Until you really get established in the industry and have like shipped AAA titles under your belt that like prove you can do the thing that you say you can do, you need to be able to prove you can do the thing you're saying you can do. Should I include non-games job experience on my resume? When you're first looking to enter the industry, I would say yes. The reason why I say yes is because it shows recruiters and hiring managers that you can show up for somebody else and you can do a job that someone else tells you to do. And it's really as simple as that. It shows that you can be reliable. So I would include it. I wouldn't give it like a huge amount of real estate, but like I would include it. Should I write a cover letter? Sometimes. I would say that if your resume and portfolio tells a really good story of your skills, the tools you can use, the things you're interested in working on, maybe not, but I will say that I will show you an example of where a cover letter made an impact on someone's, like on our decision whether or not to interview someone. And then, can my resume be more than one page? So this is one where recruiters differ. I would say yes, but I would say try to make the pages full. If you're submitting a 2-page resume, but the second page is only like 3 lines at the top of the page, you cut it down to 1 or fill it out the rest of the way. There are a lot of AAA recruiters, though, who say absolutely not. Like, they don't want to see a 2-page resume. So I wanted to share something because obviously I have just recruited for games at Stardock from someone else in the industry. This one's from Joel Baliat, who's a friend of mine on Instagram or LinkedIn. He said, "What should I do if I need experience to get a job, but I need a job to get experience?" So he really focuses on, he calls them the 3 C's. There's a third C here that I didn't include, which is why you should go see him on LinkedIn. But capability is your skill set. Be constantly developing it and demonstrate that you have it with a clean, easy to grok portfolio page you can send people to. Have visual examples of your work. Credibility is proof that you have done it before with a team. No one is going to hire anyone for a solo dev role, so you need to show that you have used your skill set to help a team succeed. Do game jams with a team. Find an indie team trying to pull themselves up by their bootstraps and help them do it. Ship something on Steam. Ship something better on Steam. Always be shipping with a team. So that's to say, when you're in college and you're doing the EECS 494 courses and you do the pieces for your portfolio from that, I have seen hundreds of those. I have seen those pieces over and over. They're good pieces, but I would like to see more than that. Like, keep developing your skills. So some general do's and don'ts of resume building. Do include your specific contributions to a project. I'll kind of share with that in a minute, but don't overstate your contributions to a project. If you did like some particle effects, don't tell me you were like the graphics engineer. If you did a couple like UI screens, tell me you did a couple UI screens, but don't tell me you did every UI screen. Do include personal passions and hobbies. Obviously, if you don't have room on your portfolio or your resume to include these, like don't delete something to put it on. But if you're looking to fill a little bit of space, especially in the games industry, it is okay to tell people who you are. Part of the thing that like studios are hiring for is for culture. So that's okay to have that on there. But don't include photos of yourself on your resume. I see this all the time. The reason why you shouldn't include photos of yourself on your resume, even if it's like a beautiful photo of yourself, is like it can create bias, like unintentional bias in the recruiter. Like they might not like your hair color or your haircut or anything else about you. So it's better to just use that real estate for like the things you can do. And then do make your resume visually appealing and inviting. It doesn't need to be super fancy unless you're like an artist or a UI UX designer. Those are more excusable. But like if you're going to do multiple like columns on your resume, use the column feature on Word. Don't just tab things over. Like make it inviting, I guess is the best way to say that. Like if you're putting your resume into a parser and it's like combining a bunch of lines together, like that's not what you want to be happening. And then don't use .png or non-searchable PDF files for your resume. Because if they are using an ATS that's searching for keywords, it's not going to be able to search your PDF or your .png file. If you're curious if your PDF file is searchable, open it in a PDF viewer and hit Control F. And if you can search it, it's searchable. So just some quick examples of how to include your contributions on your resume. For like an engineer, you might say you worked on XYZ project, writing C++ code. It's always good to show where you're using your skills. For a proprietary engine on UI, combat, and gameplay systems. For an artist, modeled, sculpted, and textured game-ready hard surface and organic 3D assets using Maya, ZBrush, and Substance Painter. That tells you like what your responsibility was. The game-ready part tells me that you know how to bake assets down from high poly to low poly without saying, I know how to bake assets down from high poly to low poly. And then like the Maya, ZBrush, and Substance Painter, although I guess that's a little outdated, I think it's just Substance now. But like that tells what tools you used on that specific project in that specific position. I'm kind of getting away from myself here, but like if you just have your skills at the top of the resume and you have like a bunch of experience where you're like, yeah, I made game assets or I made like 3D assets, but you don't tell me like what skills you used there. Oftentimes people will put that they have a skill on their resume, but they don't tell me where they got the experience from. And it is really hard to gauge how much experience you have. And I have to rely only on your portfolio. Like, I don't want to only rely on your portfolio because if you decided not to put it on there, like, I just don't know where you got that skill from. For designers, You might put that you pitched design for, prepared design documents for. I'd probably break that into multiple lines, but you get the idea. An implemented card-based combat system on XYZ project in Unity. Like, tells me exactly what you did. For producers, prepared milestones, assigned tasks, maintained schedule, and coordinated collaboration with 10 team members, including artists, designers, engineers, using Agile Scrum methodology. Again, that's a mouthful. I wouldn't quite put it like that, but you get the picture of what I'm saying here. So let's go through a resume. I tried to highlight things for people who are online, so they should be able to see what I'm talking about. But for everybody else, I'll kind of talk about it in point here. So this is the one I was talking about that had a cover letter that helped them through the interview process. Because like just going through their resume, like it's good that they included their education. Like at the top, at the bottom isn't super relevant, but they included it. They included their GPA. They broke it up. They included their expected graduation date. This person hadn't graduated yet when we hired them. You know, they broke down their project, but the thing that I don't like about this is that they really didn't, except for this last one, they didn't really tell me like what skills they used where. Like I didn't really learn anything about like where they got any of these proficient in Python, C, C++, C#, Unity, whatever. Like I didn't really get to learn that. I kind of got a little bit of insight into like tools, Ableton, Wise. Like I kind of got some of that there. They included road cycling on their resume because they needed to fill the page. Their portfolio included a few work in progress personal projects and some group projects. But one thing they did on their portfolio is they explained what their role was. They had gameplay videos. They had links to the project that kind of supplemented their resume. This is a fine resume, but the thing that kind of really put them over the top, for me anyways, is that they talked about how they've worked on 2D and 3D games and VR, which I don't necessarily get from their, like, I kind of get it from their resume, but, like, they reiterated it in the cover letter. They talked about how they utilized new technologies in their computer science major and their minor, and they told me what, like, technologies they were using. They told me how they worked as a lead audio designer on another project. They told me that they learned new tools in that project. They talked about how they worked with different people in that project that kind of told more of the story that their resume didn't really tell me. And so that one, like, it was okay. Their portfolio was okay, but the cover letter told me more of the story. So I interviewed this person, and they interviewed better than their resume and their cover letter. But like this was enough to get them an interview and ultimately the job. I want to talk about a designer that we interviewed and hired. Could have been anybody. The way they set up their resume is a little bit different. They didn't necessarily break it up by project as much as they did by like what their skills were. So like under design, they put that they pitched and once approved, implemented original quests for a project. They put that they drafted, maintained, and referenced internal game design documents for a project. They put that they used in-house scripting tools. They told that they did 3D and 2D games. They talked about their programming skills a little bit, their scripting skills. They talked about, like, in their leadership and teamwork section, they talked about how they coordinated with a bunch of different disciplines, like being able to show that you can work with different types of people who think differently and do things differently than you do is a good thing. They put that they were on the dean's list 10 out of 10 semesters, which, like, isn't necessarily super relevant if you're a game designer trying to get a job, but, like, it tells me a little bit more about who this person is. And then I want to talk about, like, what their portfolio included without showing their portfolio and trying to maintain their anonymity a little bit. But their portfolio included multiple student and personal projects. All of their projects included, like, game overviews, they included playthrough videos, they included design documents, and those design documents were thorough for every single project. They had project overview, technical information, gameplay overview, in-depth breakdown of gameplay loop. They included level design examples, and they included a schedule. The thing that's important about including the schedule is that game design is not just ideas. This shows that they understand what they're asking for to an extent that, like, if you understand what you're asking a programmer for and, like, what that's going to cost in programmer hours, like, that is like very important in game design. Like you can't just have an idea, you also need to know what it's going to cost, what it's going to take, who's going to have to work on it, how long it's going to take them. Like when you're working on a project, you need to keep those things in mind. So the fact that they had that on their like portfolio was perfect. So we had our game designer, our game designer, lead game designer recommends certain resources to every associate designer, whether or not they're applying to Stardock or anywhere else, that I wanted to include here because I know there's a lot of game designers in the room. So one of those is Rules of Play, Game Design Fundamentals by Katie Teckenboss and Eric Zimmerman. And then the other one that they recommend is you can find the Diablo design docs online, and you can find the Grim Fandango puzzle design docs online as well. If you really want to know what like a good design document includes and like how it's set up and like what kind of information they give, look at those things and like use it as like a jumping off point for like what you should be aiming for. Obviously, like you're not going to make a Diablo level design doc, but like to like start getting ideas of how it should be set up and like the sort of thing like that should be on your portfolio every time. So some general do's and don'ts of portfolio building. Do include your personal projects, even if they're not robust, especially if you are an engineer. Like, if you are applying for a job that is requiring C++ as one of the like required qualifications, do people get jobs without including C++ projects on their portfolio? Yeah, they do. But do they like often get jobs without including it on their portfolio? I haven't hired someone that way. So if you're applying for a job, even if it's not the hugest project, even if it's not like a game project, even if it's not finished, like include it on your portfolio, include that you know how to like do something with the language that they're requiring from you, even if it's not something huge. Don't forget to also include school, group, and game jam projects. Like those game jams are great for learning how to work with other people. They're great for trying new things. They're great for failing fast, but they are not great for writing clean, scalable, sustainable code, unless like you're going into it with that thought. Like if you're going to be doing game jam projects, like if you're gonna have the GitHub repository on your like portfolio and it's just a bunch of spaghetti from a game jam project, you might not. You might not. But those are good things to start putting on your portfolio. Do include specific examples that are relevant to the job posting. If you are a character artist looking to apply for a character art role, have characters. If you are an environment artist, have environments. But don't overstate your participation in those things. Like if you're putting a game on your portfolio and I ask you about it and you're like, yeah, actually like my 2 older brothers did it and like I kind of was there. That happens. So probably don't put that on your portfolio. Do include breakdowns of your processes. So if you're a game designer, like include, like you record a video of your thought process and talk me through it. If you're an engineer and you have like, you're doing particle effects or something, like show me the way it works. Like take a GIF of it or put a video of it. If you're an artist, if you're an artist and you are applying for a job and you have your art station and it only has finished assets on it, put some wireframes, put some of the maps on there, like put the literally anything other than just the finished asset. Those things like really show that like you know what you're doing, because especially when you're working with like products that are going in an engine or you're working on with a team, like they need to be solid. Like they need to be, the workflow needs to be good. Like it needs to make sense. It needs to fit in with the rest of the team, like, or at least show that you can be molded to fit in with the rest of the team. But don't only follow tutorials or only use other people's concepts. Rollerball is great, y'all. It's a it's great, but it's on a lot of portfolios. And I love a Legend of Zelda reskin, I really do. I've seen so many of them, like, I want to see something different. For artists, the space hallway, I've seen the space hallway, I've seen the wishing well with the skull on it, I know Kate has too, like, I have seen the blizzard swords, like, give me something unique. Like, our VP of business development was in my office and I was telling him about this presentation, and he wanted me to bring in a big box of lemons and hand them around to everybody and have them look at them and be like, okay, now look at your lemon and figure out something that's unique, put it back in the box, and at the end of the presentation, try to get you guys to pick out your lemons. I was not doing that. However, he had a point that you need to be able, I am the person who's looking at the box of lemons, I need to pick one out, and your lemon better have something unique about it on there in order to stick out, in order to like draw people to it. No one tell him I told it that way. And then the same thing goes for artists. Like, if you are an artist, you are an artist. Like, make some art. Like, whether or not, okay, like doing 3D models and interpretations of people's concepts is art. It's a type of art. However, make some of your own. Show that you can do it, even if it's not a job, something you're gonna be doing in your job regularly. Like, again, you're an artist. Like, I want to see your art, and other people do too. I bet it's pretty good. Now we're gonna transition to talking about LinkedIn. The big scary LinkedIn. So, general tips and tricks for winning LinkedIn on first try. Create and update your LinkedIn profile. I know some of you college students have not updated it since like semester 1. Please update your LinkedIn profile. And if you don't have one, make one. They are incredibly useful. Like I said, I knew nobody in the industry when I started working here. When, you know, like, I happened to go to PAX West a couple years ago. I met up with people on, like, who I'd met on LinkedIn and like made connections, helped people get jobs through those connections, met a bunch of recruiters, met a bunch of like industry veterans, took pictures at their booths, like, had a good time. But like, you need to be on there to make those connections. And they're not that scary, I promise. But don't only use LinkedIn for looking for jobs, especially entry-level jobs. So the way LinkedIn works for job posting is companies can pay for a subscription, they can pay per job post. A lot of companies who are doing high volumes of posting are, they're probably paying for the subscription, but they only have a limited number of posts, and I can fill an associate role without ever paying to post it. And most people are not paying to post it. If you've been looking on LinkedIn or Indeed or any of the other job sites and you're like, man, they never post internships and they never post entry-level jobs, and I can't ever find any. Because you have to go to their websites and look. You need to go to the career page of the specific studio that you want to work for and look for the jobs. Look for associate, look for junior, look for entry level, look for intern, and look for the job title without those things. Because some studios are hiring gameplay engineers, but they don't have like experience requirements. Like, if your portfolio and your resume like is solid, apply. if it says have 3+ years of experience, but your resume and portfolio is solid, apply. Like, I have hired people who do not have the required experience. Like, apply. Just apply. Don't apply 100 times, but apply once. Apply every few months. Like, it's okay to apply. And post your projects on LinkedIn. I scroll LinkedIn, and I know Kate's on there too because I've seen it on her computer. I like to see people's projects, and there have been times where someone's posted something. They're not like, they don't have like open for work or anything on their profile, but they post something, and I reach out and I'm like, hey, that's pretty neat. I like that a lot. And then a few months later, they post open for work on their profile, and I already have a relationship with them because they posted something cool, and I reached out and I saw it. Recruiters, they're all over this stuff. Like, if you start looking for it, you will start seeing that like the lead recruiters at ZeniMax, the lead recruiters at Activision Blizzard, the lead recruiters at like any of these any of these big studios that, granted, just did layoffs, but like they're on here, like they are on here, like, and they are still hiring even though they've done layoffs. If you look at these career pages, they still have posts like this is games that they do layoffs. So still keep looking, still keep posting, still keep interacting, because even if you're not getting the job today, you might get it 6 months from now, and you might have a relationship that'll help you get it. So some quick things. Again, make an account on LinkedIn if you don't have one. Have a photo of yourself. This is the place where you're going to put a picture of your pretty face, not on your resume. Again, it's a networking tool, so like it's okay to show who you are on there. Have a link to your resume and portfolio on your profile, not in a post, but like in the About Me section or in the links that like stay in perpetuity on your profile. Include those things. I look at them, recruiters look at them, people in the industry look at them. If they're going to your profile, they are probably looking for them. Have something there. Make your tagline say something about you, but keep it professional. I really like ChatGPT for this. I sure do. I wouldn't copy and paste from ChatGPT necessarily, but I would go in and be like, I am a University of Michigan or a Kettering student. I'm a senior. I'm a comp sci student. I want to get in the games industry. I really like, I don't know, Unity. Sure. And have it make something for you. I was just coming up with something. But have it come up with something for you. Have it make you 5 options. Pick the favorite one that sounds like professional to you. And adjust it to be more specific and put it on your LinkedIn. Cute things are fine on there, but they're not going to help you in searches. They're not going to help you necessarily get a job. Again, include non-industry jobs in your experience slash work history. Include your projects on there too, because it's LinkedIn. It's not, I mean, they should be on your resume, but like LinkedIn has no limits. It has no rules, except for these ones. So include your work experience. Include your projects in your work experience on LinkedIn, and include links to them too. And again, share the cool projects that you're working on. And then this kind of continues on LinkedIn, but I give it its own section for networking. So LinkedIn is not just for advertising yourself. Follow the recruiters who work at the companies you want to work for. And follow the recruiters who work at companies that you don't want to work for. Follow the recruiters because they are posting internships, they're posting job openings, they're posting tips for applying at their specific studios, they're posting talks, they're posting interviews, they're posting literally everything that you could want. Like this presentation times 1,000,000 on every single recruiter's profile. And I'll talk about how you find those people. And then connect with people working in the jobs that you want to have. If you want to be a 3D artist working at Activision Blizzard, find all the 3D artists working at Activision Blizzard and then connect with every single one of them. Half of them will not respond to you, but the ones that do, like, they'll accept your connection request. And when they do, send them a message and be like, hey, I love Activision Blizzard, and I would love to work in the sort of job that you work in. I'm connecting to say hello. Like, if they respond to you, like, again, 1/10 of them will, but you only need one. Like, start building a relationship with them. If they worked on a project that you've played and you thought it was really cool, like, tell them that. Like, people love a little bit of flattery. It helps open doors and build relationships. Like, when I first started connecting with people on LinkedIn, I went and found the people who worked on the games I liked as a child. My first connections were people who worked on Spyro. Like, find those people, tell them how much you loved the game, and start connecting with them. Another great thing that I found is start connecting with people who work in the AAA or in the games industry in Michigan. There are a lot of them that don't even know that we exist. They don't know that IGDA and Arbor exists. They don't know that Stardock exists. Find them, connect with them, and say, hey, I see you're in Michigan. I'm connecting with all the Michigan industry people. Hi, I want to just introduce myself. I haven't had a single person who hasn't responded to me that way, even when I didn't have, HR manager at Stardock in my tagline. So this is going to just talk through real quick how to find people efficiently on LinkedIn. Their searches have filters. I'm sure you are all smart enough to figure this out, but the things that you're really going to want to search for is just type recruiter in the little search bar. And you don't have to have premium for this. You can do this on a normal profile. Search recruiter on LinkedIn. On the search, it's going to pop up with like a bunch of these things. You're going to click people, and it'll filter out all the companies that are talking about recruiters. It'll filter out all the job postings. Hit the all filters section and go to the industry and just find the computer games people. There is no like video games section. There's just computer games. I think they have a mobile games thing too, but I'm a PC games person. And then in the filters as well, under talks about, because there are recruiters who don't post anything, but like find the ones that have the talks about hashtag recruiting and hashtag video games. And those are the people who are posting the great things that I was just talking about, the tips, the tricks, all that stuff. And they're also the people who are reposting the tips and tricks and all the things I was just talking about. You're not going to find everyone you want to connect with this way, but you will find the first 20 people, and then they'll repost from people who are posting about this stuff, and you connect with them, and you just continue connecting with people, like, as you see them come up on your profile and they're posting about things that, like, you think are interesting or helpful for you. You can also filter by what company they work for, so if, like, your heart is set on working for Stardock, you can filter by that. But you can watch their posts, watch who they repost from, and feel free to reach out to them. Like, there are a lot of people message recruiters, they message HR managers. A lot of them will not respond to you. If you've ever messaged me on LinkedIn, you might know this experience. I try, but like, I get a lot of messages from people. Like, it's okay. Someone will. If you message 30 people, this is not a guarantee of service, but you will probably get at least one message back to start building relationships. And when you've connected with people, and you connect with other people, and they see that you already have a connection with someone they know, they're like, oh my gosh, you know this person? It's like, yeah, we connected, and we talked a little bit on LinkedIn, and they're more likely to accept your connection. So how to utilize your network. So read their profiles and ask insightful questions. Build relationships with them over time. Don't go asking for a recommendation from someone you've never talked to. If you're asking for someone to refer you to a position, or asking someone to refer you to a hiring manager, or to write you a recommendation on LinkedIn, and you've never worked with them and you've never talked with them, they're not going to respond to you, or if they are, it's going to be by like unconnecting from you. Like, be smart about it. Like, would you? I already answered my own question, but like, don't take it personal if they don't respond to you. Like I said, a lot of people are getting a lot of messages, especially right now with as many layoffs as there have been in the past month. The likelihood that you're going to get a response from a recruiter at this moment, pretty low, because they're getting bombarded with 6,000 people who have been laid off this month. I think it's actually more than that. I think it's 7,000 at this point. So 7,000 people who got laid off this month. So don't take it personal if they don't respond to you. It's okay to have a connection that like doesn't respond to you for 6 months. You can message them again in 6 months. Hopefully it'll be better by then. So, kind of in summary, if you want to work in games, it is a lot of hard work. Like, you do have to do more than what you do in your EECS 494 class. You do have to do more than what you do in your Kettering classes. Like, you have to do more. I kind of hate to say that, but like, unfortunately, that is the case. Especially when you're competing with a bunch of people who have the exact same resume and portfolio as you, because they've just gone through the U of M game dev program. Like, you have to do something to differentiate your lemon for the recruiters. Chris K will be happy with that I did that. Practice. Continue honing your craft. Keep making games. Keep making small projects. Keep doing things with other people. Think critically. Some of the things I've covered here today, I didn't go super deep on. Like, take it to the next step. Like, always be trying to take it to the next step. Trying to, like, make the next connection. Like, ask. I was told, like, engineers are taught to ask themselves why 5 times on something. I don't know if that's still true or not. That was just told to me today. But like, ask yourself why 5 times on your like on a job like posting. Like, why are they telling me I need 5 or I need C++ qualifications? Probably because it's a job with C++. Why is it in the description of the job? Probably because they want to see it. Why do they want to like? What should I do like to show that they can see it? Put it on my resume. Like follow the logic steps. And that kind of goes back to the analytical thinking or analytical like skills as well. Make friends along the way. Like the person sitting next to you, it's not just the person sitting next to you, you need to branch out, but like the person sitting next to you, you never know where they'll be working in 5 years. If you guys worked on a project in college together and you're making a like they could recommend you for a job in the future. Like, hey, I worked with this guy on my capstone project and he was really great to work with and he was a hard worker and he knew what he was doing. Like, he could always recommend you. So make friends along the way and never give up. I know, especially right now, it's very easy to like look at what's happening in the industry and decide that you don't want to be in the industry, which is valid. There are a lot of places where you can take your skills that you're making in game dev, like that you're honing for like game dev roles in the corporate world, in the business software world, in like user experience or just project management. Like there are transferable skills. But like if you want to be in games, like don't give up on that. Like make games on the side, like continue working on it, continue honing those skills, look for jobs that have those similar skills, and just continue building. And then, I've already said this like 5 times, but keep making games. Just keep doing it. If you want to do it, keep doing it. And then this page, I don't expect anyone to like write down a ton, but I included some of the people that I really like on LinkedIn, just giving them some shout outs. So Tim Wood, he posts like interviews with like hiring managers and producers and artists, like a bunch of industry folks. He posts guides that are similar to this presentation. Willem Delventhal, I'm never going to say these out loud if you can't tell. He posts about indie games. I think he calls himself the Gandalf of indie games. He has like yes, he knows what I'm talking about. He has like an indie game academy. He just posts a lot of indie games and stuff.
Yeah.
Anyways, I'm pretty sure if you've been on LinkedIn, you probably know who Amir is. He's the one who's keeping up with like all of the layoff news and making resources for people. Yes, so he's posting on there a lot. It's good to follow him, know what's happening in their industry. Ida Figueroa, pretty similarly, she posts about industry news, career resources, interviews. And then Eva Tucker, she also posts about indie studios. She posts portfolio tips. She posts tips for getting a job in games. She posts about getting your first job in games. She just posts a lot of good resources as well. So those are good people to follow. And that's the end. Are there any questions?
When I was in college, the wisdom seemed to be that if you wanted a design job in games, you got there via the avenue of either engineering or art. That was a while ago. I'm curious how that looks today, or if it's changed, how you perceive it.
There are a lot of game designers now, especially with like so many colleges who have like just game design degrees and game design programs who don't necessarily have a art or engineering background. But like the things that those people do usually have is a really strong user experience like mindset. Like they're not necessarily engineering mindset, they're not necessarily art mindset. It's like a whole different genre of person. And so like people come from that background as well. It's not necessarily art or engineering.
So you will hire a junior designer straight to that position?
Yeah, we've hired associate designers. The thing that they have is like a really solid portfolio with a really solid like example of like understanding of game design principles and game design documents, like that. little breakdown I showed you was obviously a little more experienced game designer, but like that's generally like a good example of like what we look for in a designer candidate. There's someone in the way back with the glasses, yes, who just raised your hand extra high.
What is the best way to put in your portfolio, like, a user experience focused mindset that doesn't necessarily have an output of like a cool tree eye model, but like just the understanding of like design principles?
So, okay, best way, in my opinion, disclaimer, asterisk, I really like to see like videos or like write-ups or blogs of like someone walking through like why they made the design decisions that they made, like talk about like if they had feedback, like how they implemented feedback or why they decided not to implement feedback, like a number of the like entry-level designers like that I've hired or interviewed, like they have a lot of just like talking in their portfolios that show like that they thought about these things, and then we can ask about it in interviews, but like it at least gives me enough to ask about, if that makes sense.
For sure.
Yes, Connor?
I have a few questions. I'm just gonna list one. So as a student, I've always heard school projects are worthless.
Okay.
And that like, you know, it's a project, you have to do it, you didn't have the passion for it or whatever.
Sure.
I've been doing all that I can to like take as many classes and do as much project work and put in much extra effort into these school works, because I just don't really have time as a full-time student doing everything else and all this and everything. Do you think that those, like, you know, with, you know, effort and care, do those have, I understand it's not as much effort, as much importance as extracurricular stuff, but how do you value those?
Are you a designer, engineer, artist?
I guess an engineer.
Okay. Depends on what the projects are. I think, like, if you're applying, like, it's kind of similar. Like, if you're applying for a C++ role, and, like, the only C++ example you have is, like, a euchre auto player. I'm not meaning to call anybody out, but, like, I see a lot of the euchre auto player. Like, if that's all you've got on your resume, like, probably not. Like, I need to see, like, more than that. Like, if you're an engineer and you've got a really great Unity project, but it's, like, the same description of a Unity project as everybody else, like, probably not. Like, you really do need something different that, like, even just is different.
I'd say for me personally, I've done a lot of independent study work and like making special projects within those classes, or like doing them into my own. So I think that's.
If you can call it out specifically and like kind of separate it in your portfolio and your resume, and not just have it like lumped in. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You've had your hand up for a while, Lawson.
Yes. First, a comment. I'm flattered you said we have the game dev program.
You have 3 classes now, right? Yeah, Eeks 494.
And
Yeah,
a fantastic studio, student-run studio. It's,
Yeah.
Anyway, my actual question. So the topic of generative AI is it's a bit controversial.
Yeah.
And there are a lot of people using it, and they're using it in different ways. Sometimes for big productivity boosts, and then sometimes just like copy-paste. So my question is, do you have any recommendations for how, or even if, a student should talk about their usage of generative AI and any of these projects?
If you know the studio's stance on it.
Okay.
At Stardock, if you tell me that you've been using generative AI on a project and how you've been using it, we're a smaller company. Like, it is helpful for us as a productivity tool. Like, you could include that on your resume. I'd like to know. Our CEO would love to know. Like, he's a very techy guy. He likes to keep up on it. So, like, it's good. Like, it is part of our workflow. But if you're applying for a studio that has a very strong anti-AI stance, probably not. Probably don't include that on your portfolio. But, like, one of the ways that, like, I do actually think it's really useful, like, ChatGPT in specific, is, like, if you're kind of next step, like, if you're prepping for an interview and you have a job description for the for the position you're applying for, copy it, the entire thing, go into ChatGPT and say, and this is not what I do, but like, it does help prepare. Say, like, I am a hiring manager hiring a associate game developer with this job description, write me 10 interview questions, and like, it'll help you prepare. It'll help you know what to talk about. Like, it'll help you like be ready to like think about the things you've worked on. Like, obviously don't have it write like your answers to the question, but like have it like help prepare you in that way. That's a good piece of it.
Thank you.
Yeah. Yes.
Regarding portfolios, what are your thoughts on including a portfolio piece or project that has not been released yet, but it might be the work that you want to really like demonstrate? And if they can speak to it and show examples and stuff versus a released game, for example, how would you perceive that?
I mean, work in progress is fine as long as it's not under NDA. As long as it's not someone else's project that you are breaking NDA to put on your portfolio. Or if you are, put it in a password. But not if you were a Stardock. Anyway. Yes.
So when I was applying for jobs, I had a lot of trouble figuring out where the deficiencies were in my resume, like what I was doing wrong that would make recruiter choose somebody else over me. Do you have any tips on how to get feedback when you're applying for jobs?
Sure. In the perfect world, every single person who applied would get personalized feedback on their application. In the real world, almost no one gets feedback on their application. There's a number of reasons for that, but like in the real world, it doesn't really happen that much. Do not ask recruiters. I mean, you can ask recruiters, but like most recruiters cannot give you like resume feedback on your resume, like because it's a conflict of interest because they're not doing it for everybody. Like it's bias. Like go to the people who have the jobs that you want. Like it's kind of building relationships with folks, writing a real nice, like I've done a resume review for someone who wrote like a real nice, straightforward, like understanding message to me on LinkedIn. Like you can reach out to people who are doing the job you want, build relationships, get resume feedback, ask people who like, there are resources online. Some of these people that I shared like on the last screen, like they have like resources of people who have volunteered in the industry to do just that. Like seek out those people who have already kind of advertised themselves for that online, if that makes sense. And also utilize like, do you guys do that for your students?
Yeah. I say it like that because I have an open Calendly link, and every time I mention that, I get like 40 books.
Okay.
But yes.
Review your resume on your own first. Let's critical think it a little bit. Put it in ChatGPT and with the job description say, where am I missing? Like run it through like the automated stuff. Like again, ChatGPT first.
Yeah. Amir is the one who has the big list of mentor lists.
Yeah.
I really recommend that.
Yeah.
First.
Amir,
Second.
he's number 3 on this list.
Yes.
Follow him.
Second.
I want to chime in on the point as well. There's a lot of discipline channels on Discord for like every discipline. So like designers have design them. There's a game production Discord as well, just specifically game production. They usually have mock interviews, portfolio reviews, resume reviews on all those. And it's a little bit more personable than like other platforms, and you can reach out to people easier on those platforms. So I recommend looking at Discord channels for that.
Thanks, Jerry. Yes.
What are 2 to 3 soft skills that you recommend everyone cultivate on their resume?
Did you say good luck? I would focus more on the hard skills and showing you have the soft skills through your like portfolio and like resume like experience more so. Like you should be able to work with people. Like, you should show that you can work with people. Like, the soft skills I don't think are the thing getting you the interview. Like, showing you have the hard skills. The soft skills are what we figure out after we talk to you. Like, I'm determining whether or not you can resolve conflict with your coworkers, and I'm figuring out like those sort of things like in an interview. So I wouldn't necessarily focus as much on that. Yes.
We have a question from P. on the Discord. And the question is, what are your thoughts about game adjacent work that isn't directly in the industry?
Like on a resume or like for
On a resume, I think.
Yeah. I mean, if the skills are there, the skills are there. If you did C++ simulation work for the government, you did it, like that's a game, pretty much. If you've done business software project management, it's not quite a game, but it's a step. I've hired someone with that background. Like, if you've done user experience and your hobby is games on the side, like, I don't know why I referenced you, but you didn't do that. But like, if your game is, if your job is user experience and you do games on the side, like that is transferable. Yes.
I'm curious, one of my big takeaways I feel like from your presentation is just like curation and personalization to a job posting.
Yep.
Like for instance, like the University of Michigan teaches us C++ like from the beginning, but my resume or portfolio don't really reflect that. So for a position that says C++ specifically, I might want to curate that. How would you recommend like balancing like applying to more jobs versus curating? Like how much time should I spend curating what I already have versus like getting my name into like more companies?
You will probably see better results if your resume is more curated. If you're just throwing at the wall and trying to get anything to stick, if it's not very curated, I don't think much is gonna stick. Like, you will see much more stick if it is more curated. And the thing with that too is like, these jobs that are requiring C++, I see a lot of resumes from an undisclosed college with a C++ program that have no C++ on it. And the only way I know it's a C++ program is because I'm buds with this guy right here. I know a lot of these things. Like, I don't necessarily know, like, your resume really does need to show that. Because, like, Wayne State's program is Java. Like, how am I supposed to know?
I'm updating to get a job guide right now.
Josh?
Just to comment on what you said earlier, the soft skills, I'm not going to tell you to put it on your resume, but come to next month's IGDA and Arbor, I'll be talking about soft skills and collaboration. There.
Teaser.
Ah, look at that follow. Yes.
Two things for you. First, I love that Jerry volunteered to share those links to those Discord in the Discord channel for everybody.
I will do that right now.
Second, though, we did have another comment in the Discord presenter Q&A before Paul the Philosopher's. And Tyler asks, are there any certifications that you recommend obtaining before applying for game dev programming positions specifically? I think the thought is a C++ cert's worth it.
I think that's on a per person basis. If you need extra like support and learning in C++, the cert might be worth it. It's not a thing I specifically look for on a resume, personally. I would almost say spend more time, correct me if I'm wrong, Nathan, if you think I'm wrong here. I would almost say spend more time making a C++ project, if you don't have one.
Absolutely.
Huh?
Yeah,
Okay. Yes, Kate?
Well, just to chime in on that, I don't know about certifications, but we had a candidate come through a while back that had like an Udemy course on C++, so I think that might, like, furthering education courses might also be a little bit more valuable than certs.
Yeah, I mean, if it helps your learning and development.
Yeah.
We like lifelong learners. Everyone likes lifelong learners. I got you.
You stole my comment. I was going to say,
It's like
I
we
totally
do.
agree with everything Raeann's saying. If I'm looking at an engineering resume, dear God, it's got to be C++.
Yeah.
There has to be team projects
Yep.
where they can say specifically what they did. And because of the nature of the work, and it's constantly going uphill, technology is constantly changing. I need to know what you are doing to improve your skills every week.
Yeah, if you haven't touched C++ since like the first 2 years of college and it's been 2 years, I want to brush up before we talk or before you apply. Is the multi-threading class still around?
Yes.
Take the multi-threading class. Take the multi-threading class. No one takes the
Please.
multi-threading class anymore. Take the multi-threading class, please, because if you're working at a studio with a proprietary engine, you need to know it. Antonio?
So like from the research standpoint, and like I can only imagine like how many applications that you guys would just like reading like day in, day out, that's gotta be, you know, a lot to manage on its own. But like in the scenario that someone interviews for a job, what, like, is it reasonable for them to expect to know whether they got the job or not, or is it just kind of standard like, they'll figure it out, you know, if they did or didn't?
In an ideal world, yes, it is reasonable to expect that. When things are happening in the industry or in a specific studio, it could affect that. But it is a reasonable expectation. Yes.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, because you said early on that this was more about like AAA, like studio size, you know, advice. And I think the vast majority of it is applicable to the indie scene as well. I was gonna say, I don't know if I've ever really interacted with anybody on LinkedIn. Like for indies, it's like Twitter as much as I hate Twitter. Sorry, X. Formerly, I'm not gonna call it. Twitter's where like I've gotten every job I've ever had in games, and like as much as I hate being there, that's where like the indie people meet, and Discords as well. Like there's definitely.
I think that's fair. I will say, the past like 3 people I've hired, other than Kate, have all been people I found on LinkedIn and connected with directly. But like.
Oh no, I wasn't saying that LinkedIn is not useful.
You told me I'm wrong.
No, I just
Twitter's
mean,
a good resource too.
No, I meant more just that like I think indies tend to congregate on Twitter and have less formal networking.
Yeah.
No, I think LinkedIn is totally. I'm not doing anything.
Are we gonna meet up outside?
I got another presenter Q&A question in the Discord for you. In terms of keeping resumes, how long does Stardock and the industry in general keep resumes on file? And do you actually look at those old resumes on file? In relation to that, how long should one typically wait before resubmitting a resume to a dream job?
Okay. I can't speak for the rest of the industry. I can say that me and Kate are interviewing people who applied 5 months ago. If it's a job that I have, like a new job that's opening and I've hired for it like in the past, I will search through the resumes and reach out to people who applied. Mm-hmm. We technically keep them for, I think, like 2 or 3 years. There's a legal requirement that I should know off the top of my head, but our ATS takes care of it now. So, like, I keep them for as long as I'm legally required to.
Yeah. Does it hurt you then? I guess it's probably a follow-up to this. Mm-hmm. If a job was posted, let's say 5 months ago, mm-hmm. you apply for it, it gets filled by somebody else, and a new job gets posted. The same thing. Reapply.
If you receive a rejection, though, don't submit your same resume again.
Right. Yeah.
If you received a rejection from your Kate, change your resume before you apply again.
Sweet.
And you can apply again. I'm not, the people I'm tracking, how often they apply again, is people I've interviewed. If I haven't interviewed you and you would like to apply again, go ahead and apply again. I can see that you've applied again, but I'm not going to look at your old, like, if you've applied like 30 times and it's the same resume every single time, I might not double check that it's not the same resume, but if you've applied twice and it's like been a year since you last applied, or 6 months, or 5 months, or 2 months, like, as long as it's not the same resume.
Sweet.
Good games. There's a hand in the back behind a pillar.
So for speaking about internships specifically, sorry.
You're fine.
So with internships specifically, what are some things that you expect to see on a resume or a portfolio that might come from someone with less experience than someone applying for like a full-time position?
Okay, so Stardock hasn't hired interns in the time that I've been here, so I haven't hired any interns. However, I would expect pretty similar in terms of like if the internship is for a C++ role, have some, like, same rules would apply. A lot of studios though, I know like some of the Blizzard, like bigger studios, like they don't get that specific. I couldn't tell you what they're looking for. I really couldn't on that one. Yes.
I had what's your opinion on applicants without like a traditional education? Like maybe they only have an associate's or unfinished college, but they do have a portfolio, they do game jams, and have that experience, but they don't have the like the education that's usual to back it up. Does that change your outlook or?
Sorry.
Huh?
Engineering, art, design?
Just in general.
Depends. It depends.
Like if they, let's just say art then.
Okay.
Like they have a portfolio, they can do the stuff, they do jams.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe they've worked other jobs, but no game design or no game development experience from like a university or anything.
Okay. It depends. On art, if you're applying for an entry-level art job, but like you've got like a good portfolio and your workflows are good, and you can show me that your workflows are good with things like wireframes and maps and maps and like texture map, like all that stuff, I might still talk to you. If you're a designer and you've got great design docs and everything is in line, and you like have scripting, like you show me you can script, like I'll probably still talk to you. An engineer is where things get sticky because you can make things work with code without like it being good code. And when you're working in an environment where you're working with 20 other engineers, other people need to be able to know what your code did, and they need to be able to read it, and it needs to follow good coding practices. And a lot of, I won't say, obviously you can become a great engineer without a formal education, like, however, college does teach you some of those things. Like, I have seen a lot of like folks without that formal education who don't have good coding practice, but their stuff compiles. They can make good stuff, but like they need to be able to work with other people.
You'll see like engineering positions will have, bachelor's requirement.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of design or art positions I'll see don't have like it's a preferred.
Mm-hmm.
I guess I didn't know in the eyes of a recruiter if there was a preference or if it all comes down to the portfolio.
For like art and design, I'd say it comes down to the portfolio. And for engineering, it comes down to the coding test that you take after your first interview for us. Connor, I already answered a question for you, so I'm gonna go for someone who I haven't.
When you're dealing with like people that don't have much experience, in terms of like experience, would you try to include things like work from a student environment, or just try to tailor your previous non-field work as much as you can for the field?
What do you mean, like work from a student
Like,
environment?
Like if you're like in terms of experience, would you include projects that were done at school, or would you
Yeah.
stay away? Okay.
I mean, if you need to put something on your resume.
Yeah.
If that's all you have, like
I just mean in like combination with non-field, just normal jobs.
yeah, I mean, you shouldn't have like 100 projects on your portfolio. Like pick the best ones, but like you need to fill it out. Like you should have more than one. And if some of them are personal and some of them are student, like some of them are personal and some of them are student, like put the personal ones at the top. Put the like out of school ones at the top, but like still fill out your portfolio. Connor?
And that's sort of bouncing off that question. How many projects, like if I'm like making games, right? How many projects should be in a portfolio? And then B, where do you go about making that portfolio?
So I have seen the number of projects on a portfolio. I have seen anywhere between 3 and like 10. I feel like that's fine. If it's 10 though, like it needs to be like really like clean. Like if I can't tell where a project starts and where a project begins, and it's just endless scroll of projects, like I might look at the top few. So probably not that many. And then in terms of where, I have seen them everywhere. If you're an artist, ArtStation is great. If you're an animator, there's a lot of animators use Vimeo. It's fine, but it is a little annoying, I'm not gonna lie, but I don't have a better solution for that. If it's game design, I've seen some people on like Wix site. There's some people who just submit their GitHub repositories. If it's easily like searchable, it's okay. If there's a lot of notes, it's okay. If I can't really read it very well, I'll send it to Nathan and ask him if there's anything good in there. But I look for the CPP and then I send it to Nathan. Any of those free like build your own websites are generally fine. And I don't care if it's like a .wix site. Like I'm not judging you for not paying for the domain name.
Excellent. All right, Raeann, thank you so much.